Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are strapping in for a journey far beyond the familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Right to the outer ring of the solar system, a space that's really defined by fierce independence and, well, uncompromising duty. We're embarking on a deep, detailed analysis of a character who arrives on the scene not as a predictable ally, not even as a clear enemy, but as this disruptive essential force.
I think that's the perfect word. Disruptive.
We're talking, of course, about Haruka Tenno, universally known as Sailor Uranus.
Haruka is, I think, maybe one of the most intellectually compelling figures in this entire universe. She's defined by distance.
Right.
By a powerful ambiguity, and by that disruption you mentioned. She's as cool as starlight, sharp as a blade, and she really embodies what the sources call the hard cut.
The hard cut. What do they mean by that?
It's that, that painful, necessary space between the oncoming storm and the calm world we're all trying to protect.
Absolutely. So our mission today, drawing from your stack of character analysis papers, the deep mythological breakdowns, and some really crucial cultural commentary on identity, it's to unpack that profound complexity.
And it is complex.
She is the paradox of the solar system. A shadow standing at the edge of light so that others can walk safely in it.
And she has this striking, almost intimidating androgynous grace. The way she moves through the world, it's this undeniable, challenging presence.
She really is fundamentally the wind that refuses to be tamed.
And every fiber of her being challenges our traditional strength of gender and even morality. She demands that.
So let's jump right into the foundation. To truly understand the burden she carries, we have to start with the potent symbolic context that's woven into her very being.
Right.
Starting with her name and her cosmic.
Let's begin with her civilian name, Haruka Tenno. The sources really stress that this name isn't just a label. It's an early declaration of her destiny and her whole existential condition.
Okay, so if we break that down, the first part, Haruka, is crucial. It means distant or far away or remote. What does that distance really signify for her character?
It symbolizes two things at once, really. First, the sources suggest it represents the geographic and emotional distance that's required of a soldier of the outer rim.
She has to stand sentinel.
Exactly. Far away from the comforts of the inner world. But second, and this is maybe the more tragic part, it symbolizes her emotional growth and this deep existential loneliness. The constant presence of the name is a reminder to the reader, and maybe even to Haruka herself, that her journey requires isolation.
And that makes the narrative context so clear. I mean, we see this borne out in the story, right? Unlike the inner guardians who have these settled civilian lives with friends and family.
Routines, yeah.
Haruka's life is nomadic. It's constant travel, it's training, it's defined by a total lack of traditional stability. She's always moving, always on a journey. So this distance isn't really a choice. It's more of a necessary professional hazard.
It reinforces her role as that lone sentinel.
Right.
And then you layer Tenno onto that. And this is where the sheer authority of her being is just etched in. Tenno is composed of the kanji tan, which means heaven or sky.
And O, which means king or ruler.
Exactly.
So Tenno translates directly to heavenly king, or king of the heavens. That's a title of immense, almost divine authority.
It is. So when you combine them, Haruka Tenno becomes distant sky king.
Wow.
It's an incredibly potent title that ties her existence directly to the cosmos and to this inescapable authority. Even when she's fighting against her fate, her name asserts a kind of sovereignty over her own domain.
Which is the vast empty reaches of space she has to defend.
Precisely.
And that profound authority, that connection to the high skies, it's further cemented by her astrological profile. She's born on January 27th.
Making her an Aquarian.
An air sign, traditionally ruled by the planet Uranus.
And this connection is so profound. The character analyses we've looked at lean heavily into these traits. Aquarians are known for being visionary, intellectually driven, fiercely independent. All Haruka. And often emotionally complex. These traits define her persona completely. She resists conventional roles, which I know we'll get into. She embraces duality, and she carries out her missions with this stoic, passionate focus.
She's not just a magical girl.
No. She's the storm that signals a necessary and often very painful change.
And the mythological connection to the planet Uranus, or Uranus, that's key to her role as a disruptor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uranus was the primordial god of the vast unknowable.
And associated with the uncontainable nature of the heavens. The mythological commentary here provides a stunning parallel.
In what way?
Well, In Greek myth, Uranus's downfall, which was violent and ushered in a whole new generation of gods, the Titans, it signals radical transformation.
Okay.
Haruka's presence in the narrative does the exact thing. She is the disruptor. She doesn't just fight monsters. She forces the entire existing power structure, the inner guard, to transform and to mature.
She's the archetype of the Sky Warrior then. Untethered, always in motion, and not afraid to challenge the fundamental structures of justice.
All in the name of a greater, harder.
This necessity of standing apart is built right into her mandate as an outer guardian. For the listener who knows the basics, let's detail why the outer guardians are so inherently different from the inner, because that distinction really justifies her stoicism.
It absolutely does. The sources make a very clear, the inner guardians, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, they're fundamentally charged with dealing with terrestrial and human threats.
Right. Their domains are elements of society and ocean: love, passion, intellect,
physical strength. But the outer guardian, they operate in a completely different...
a much bigger one.
Precise. They are tasked protecting the solar system from far-reaching external cosmic threat, existential threat, forces that deal with the fundamental limits.
Like silence from Saturn, or time from Pluto.
Or the sea from Neptune, and the sky and disruption from Uranus. Their enemies are usually forces of oblivion, not just villains trying to take over the Earth.
So that role requires them to maintain this necessary emotional and physical distance.
Because their job often involves making choices that are, frankly, incompatible with human compassion. Their stoicism isn't just aloof, it's operational necessity.
She stands at the edge of the universe, watching and protecting a future that only she has the courage. And she carries this mission out with an almost calculated confidence, which brings us back to that subtle cultural insight, her blood type.
Blood type B, yes.
Right.
The character analysis stack highlights this as a really nuanced layer of her characterism.
Why is that?
In Japanese culture, blood type B is often used to symbolize a personality that is mysterious, pendant, and fiercely confident.
Just fits her perfectly.
It supports that sophisticated, stoic persona she projects. She doesn't seek validation or trust from others. She just acts based on her own conviction. She enters the story, as one source notes, like a sudden, potent gust of wind.
Unrequested, but entirely necessary to clear the air.
Exactly.
So if her name grants her this cosmic authority, the next most crucial question the sources address is, how does that authority manifest in her human existence?
And this leads us directly to the concept of the armor of ambiguity.
So this next section, it tackles what is arguably the most complex and contested aspect of her character in all the source material, the politics of her identity.
Right.
Haruka's introduction to the story isn't through her uniform, it's through her intentional ambiguity.
Indeed. She walks through Tokyo like a complex riddle in motion. She is tall, strikingly elegant, undeniably charismatic, and so androgynous that she's initially mistaken by Usagi and Minako for a handsome young man.
And the narrative relies on that confusion.
It does. The character analysis stack emphasizes that this intentional unclarity is the first, most powerful clue about her nature. Haruka is not meant to fit within pre-established definitions.
She's described in one analytical essay as the space between definitions.
I love that phrase.
Me too. She forces everyone who encounters her characters and the audience alike to instantly broaden their worldview.
And to call her androgynous is really just to observe the surface. To truly understand her, you have to accept the profound truth she embodies, that strength isn't exclusively masculine and elegance isn't exclusively feminine.
She just slices through those restrictive illusions with the precision of her space sword.
She does. She wears suits and races cars not to imitate men, but because those activities and aesthetics resonate with her truth. She owns that space without needing anyone else's validation of her gender expression.
Okay, now this is the point where the sources really diverge, and we have to report impartially on the different interpretations that are in the stack. We have one viewpoint, which comes straight from the creator's intent, that states Haruka is non-binary.
Right. And then running parallel to this, we have another set of arguments, often based on close observation of the anime's narrative and her relationship with Mikiru, that argues Haruka is clearly a lesbian.
And her androgyny is an expression of that orientation.
Correct.
But for many listeners, I think those two viewpoints can feel mutually exclusive. They fall into the trap of rigid Western binary definition. So how does the analysis stack allow us to hold both of those truths at the same time without dismissing the creator's statement or the observable narrative facts?
And that is the genius of Haruka's construction. The synthesis is that her identity itself is a challenge to binary thinking, regardless of her orientation.
Since it's the challenge, that's the point.
Exactly. Whether she identifies as non-binary or as a masculine woman, she is a rebellion wrapped in gray. She demonstrates that strength and self-determination and fierce independence are part of a universal human landscape, not these gendered boxes.
Her identity isn't a struggle for definition, then.
No, it's a quiet declaration of freedom that is whole, uncompromising, and just unapologetically her own.
And that represents the idea that personal truth shouldn't be constrained by societal expectation, which is a pretty powerful message for a series airing in the 1990s.
Absolutely.
And this refusal to conform is what generates so much hostility from the outside world, which is, I think, beautifully illustrated in the motor race incident.
Oh, this is a spectacular foundational example of symbolic violence. The character studies all highlight that. Haruka enters and wins a motor race,
Which is a dangerous, highly competitive, adrenaline-fueled space, traditionally and culturally dominated by male egos and unspoken rules.
Right. And initially, the male racers, they admire her skill, competent pose, she's faster than them. Her victory is celebrated on its face. But the moment the truth is revealed that the fastest driver, the winner of their supposedly masculine domain, is a woman, that admiration incept. It just turns suspicion, resentment, and a desire to nullify her.
They immediately accuse her of cheating, of using a trick.
Right.
And the sources point out, this isn't about broken rules. It's about her existence defying their expectations of where true, unvarnished talent should reside.
It reflects that insidious narrative that women who succeed in male-dominated spaces must have done so unfairly.
Because talent isn't expected to come from a woman.
Especially not one who adopts masculine attire and demeanor. And the reaction is immediate and visceral. It escalates to physical violence very quickly.
They attack her.
Yeah, they attack her, enraged, not by any actual foul play, but by the fact that her defiance just shatters their comfortable traditional world.
And Haruka's response is the key to understanding her character. She doesn't perform vulnerability or try to placate them.
No.
She doesn't offer a long explanation or beg for mercy. She fights back.
With principle, with efficiency, and with lethal strength. She already knows who she is, and she claims that space without The source commentary emphasizes that her retaliation isn't just self-defense.
It's a declaration.
It is. It's a declaration that says, I will not shrink or disappear to make you feel bigger or more comfortable in your restricted view of.
That moment is Sailor Uranus, in essence. She refuses to shrink, even when society, and specifically male-dominated society, demand.
She becomes the symbol of resistance to sexism, to conformity, and to the erasure of androgynous. She is a silent guardian for every soul who's been told, you do not belong here.
And what's more, the consequences of that fight are rarely discussed, but they're vital for understanding her armor.
That's a great point. The source material suggests this incident acts as a foundational memory for her, reinforcing her need for emotional distance. She learned that external acceptance is conditional.
It's based on outdated rules.
So her strength must be self-evident, and her identity is something she needs to protect and justify only to herself. The racetrack, which should symbolize freedom, it quickly became a violent reminder of the world's limitations. And if we connect that anti-conformist identity to her larger cosmic mission, we realize that Haruka's most painful conflict is internal. It's the eternal war between her deepest desire and her inescapable death.
Okay, so what was her deepest desire according to the source?
Pure, unfiltered, untethered freedom.
Just freedom.
The right to choose herself, to choose her path, and most importantly, the right to choose love without cosmic. The tragedy is that duty found her first.
To become Sailor Uranus wasn't a negotiable career path then.
Not at all. It was a summon that arrived with the heaviest chains imaginable. Protect the solar system, remain distant, and make the hard decisions no one else can stomach.
And the sources described the racetrack as her only sanctuary. Speed became the one escape where she could momentarily forget the crushing realization that she wasn't in control of her own destiny.
She raced not just to win, but to breathe, to feel the exhilaration of motion that counted the heavy stillness of her preordained.
She is the living paradox, the embodiment of the untamed whim that has to spend its life defending rigid walls.
And this burden manifests most dramatically in her role as the philosophical embodiment of utilitarian tragedy. She is the soldier standing in the cold, carrying the moral weight no one else.
Okay, for the listener, let's unpack that philosophical concept a bit more. Utilitarianism, in its simplest form, argues that the most ethical choice is the one that produces the greatest good for the greatest number.
Right.
But when we add tragedy to it, what are the stakes for Haruka?
The tragedy is that she understands profoundly that to defend the greater collective good, she may have to commit unforgivable acts.
Specifically destroying the innocent.
Exactly. She is the character who looks at a moral dilemma and asks, how many millions of lives are worth the sacrifice of one soul?
And this is best exemplified in her contemplation of eliminating Hotaru, Sailor Saturn, to prevent the greater destruction.
The awakening of Mistress Nine, the arrival of Pharaoh Nine. Haruka knows that if Hotaru awakens, the cosmic silence and destruction associated with Saturn will wipe out the entire solar system.
So her decision to potentially sacrifice Hotaru isn't fueled by hatred or even cold logic.
Not at all. The sources confirm it is done with tears held tightly behind stoic eyes, with immense self-loathing.
So she's not immune to heartbreak. She just walks past it because she views her mission as purely mathematical.
One must be sacrificed to save billions. The world sees her coldness and calls it ruthlessness, but what they miss is the silent torment of the soldier who has already chosen to die with her guilt rather than allow millions to suffer.
She dares to ask whether the sacrifice of one's own clean soul can ultimately save millions of others. This makes her both the ultimate protector and a necessary sinner.
And she's understood by almost no one. This stance creates a dramatic, necessary conflict that challenges the entire ethical framework of the inner guardians.
Especially Sailor Moon, Usagi.
Yes, especially Usagi.
This is the essential clash. Usagi's philosophy is defined by compassion, mercy, and the belief that every life can be saved. She refuses to accept a choice between two.
And Haruka, conversely, protects with distance and with necessity. She forces Usagi to confront adult reality. Haruka challenges the core idea that love and justice are always aligned.
Sometimes to secure justice, you have to set love aside.
Exact. Think about their initial disagreements when Haruka and Michiru arrive. Haruka frequently dismisses the inner guardians as children playing at war.
But not because they're weak.
No, but because they hold on to the luxury of absolute moral certainty.
One specific essay I read argued that Haruka's existence demands that the viewer grow up. She teaches us that sometimes saving the world requires you to be willing to be hated by it.
That's it. Haruka doesn't fight so others will thank her or forgive her. She fights so others will never have to know the crushing weight of making her kind of choice.
It's an unredempted path, and she bears it in silence.
And that emotional isolation is amplified because her duty prevents her from explaining herself. If she shows her pain, she risks compromising the mission by inviting doubt.
So the armor has to remain perfect, even when she's crumbling inside.
And that is the philosophical weight of the sword. It's not just a weapon, but the symbol of the impossible choices.
That profound internal conflict, the sacrifice she's willing to make, the storm she keeps contained, it has to go somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the sources suggest this buried emotional storm is exactly what fuels her signature attack. Her power isn't just magic. It's a direct physical reflection of her sharp mind, her buried rage, and her cosmic purpose.
What's so fascinating here is how fundamentally elemental and symbolic her attacks are. They tie back directly to the disruptive nature of the myth of Uranus. Take her signature move, world shaking,
which is physically devastating. It's a glowing golden sphere of energy that crashes into the ground
and generates massive seismic wave, wind-based energy.
And the source commentary notes the deliberate choice of the color gold.
Yes, linking it to divine or inescapable judgment. She uses world shaking not as a casual defense, but always when the situation is desperate.
When boundaries have to be shattered.
Or when a fundamental threat demands total destruction. It channels that repressed storm she keeps being posed.
And symbolically, it's about absolute disruption, right? Just as the mythical heavens shook during the downfall of the sky god Uranus.
When she calls forth this power, it's not just the earth that trembles.
It shakes everything that is certain. Her entrance into the inner guardians' lives is a sudden quake, forcing them to reevaluate their stable worldview and what justice truly means.
Her methods are fundamentally chaotic, which is why she is so often...
Okay, then we move to the space sword blast. This is where her precision and her decisiveness are crystallized.
She wields the space sword, one of the 3 sacred talismans, and she uses it to slash through illusions and enemies with this focused cosmic energy.
Now, the sources make a really critical, complex note about the symbolism of the sword itself. Traditionally, a sword is a powerful phallic symbol.
Representing masculine dominance and force, yes.
Yet, Haruka wields it with grace, with authority, and with this fluid gender expression.
She is, as one academic essay argued, flipping traditional associations and affirming her non-binary. She takes a symbol of rigid traditional power and uses it to execute a highly personalized form of judgment.
So as the wielder of this sword, Haruka becomes a figure of cosmic judgment.
Her strike is meant to be painful, to cut through the noise of moral ambiguity, but it's always necessary in her own mind. It reflects her intense mental acuity and her ability to cut through complex. She rarely has it.
And finally, we have Space Turtle.
Her most chaotic and strongest attack. It shows her raw, fundamental cosmic
Unlike the measured, clean strikes of the sword or the focused devastation of world-shaking, space turbulence is just this. The swirling, unpredictable, violent blast of interstellar energy.
It is the ultimate manifestation of her. Haruka Tenno's soul was never meant.
It's the sheer force of uncontained celestial energy she possesses.
She was forged to move without restriction, to run faster than fate, and to carve paths where none exist, even if that path involves pure, unadulterated. Her power is a mirror, immense, necessary, and completely
Despite this overwhelming image of coldness, the piercing gaze, the voice that sounds like wind cut through glass, the unwavering discipline, the greatest irony of Sailor Uranus is that she harbors the softest, most emotionally vulnerable heart of all the outer guards.
She absolutely does. She simply hides it behind this impermeable armor because she knows her duty requires her to.
She can't afford to tremble outwardly, but the sources confirm she does tremble internally. The character analysis stack highlights this vulnerability beautifully, especially during the mission to find the pure heart crystals in the Sailor Moon S arc.
Right. Haruka and Michiru, Sailor Neptune, they're operating under the grim necessity of war. They know every extraction of a pure heart crystal could mean the death of an innocent civilian.
And while Neptune accepts this with this quiet design,
the visual cues surrounding her, she flinches, she looks away, she closes her eyes tight. The internal analysis suggests that for her, this is not theoretical warfare. It is intensely personal. She is forced to internalize the cost of every single civilian life.
She's the one who has to stand guard while the crystal potentially take, the one who has to suppress her instinct to intervene with compassion.
Her silence in those scenes is analyzed as being louder than any protest because inside, she is screaming against the injustice and the cruelty of her.
She appears the hardest on the outside, but she is often the one hurting.
Bearing the weight of existential moral guilt while desperately wishing her duty were lighter. She hides her vulnerability because the calculation is simple. If she allows herself to feel too much, she might fall apart, and if she falls, the world falls with her.
And this overwhelming personal cost is the core foundation of her defining relationship, her bond with Michiru Kaio, Sailor Neptune.
Their love is not a loud, effusive relationship defined by grand gestures. It's a celestial, elemental connection. The sources describe it beautifully. It doesn't follow the arc of ordinary romance. It is a recognition like the stars remembering their place in the sky.
They didn't fall into love. They returned.
Recognizing a bond forged in a past life and cemented by a shared, terrible destiny.
It is crucially a quiet act of revolution. This bond breaks every rule of traditional 90s media representation. The commentary stack really details this.
They're depicted as equals. Their love is constant, quiet, infinite, and it refuses to ask for the world.
They exist entirely outside the accepted norms of heterosexual romance, yet they are the most stable, mature couple in the entire cast.
They are perfect symmetry and refuge for one another. Haruka, the swift, turbulent wind, always moving, always sharp.
And Michiru, the deep, composed, artistic sea. She possesses the only emotional depth that can truly anchor Haruka.
Michiru is the only shore Haruka can return to after the war she fights within herself.
And Haruka expresses her love through protection and physical presence. It's a devotion expressed through this unspoken loyalty, always positioning her body between Neptune and danger.
Always ensuring Michiru's safety first. Their bond is defined by their shared mission tech, but Haruka personalizes that duty entirely around.
But this beautiful bond is also stitched with terror.
Oh, absolutely. Haruka lives with the ever-present fear that fate might one day inevitably ask her to sacrifice the one thing she cannot live without to save the universe.
And still she chooses to love.
To stay. To fight beside her, even as the universe relentlessly demands too much. Her love is an act of defiance against her own predetermined, solitary destiny.
The sources really delve into the visual cues that convey the depth of their bond. While Haruka maintains this rigid, impenetrable facade for everyone else, Michiru's steady gaze is often the only thing that can break her composure.
You see her eyes soft, or her expression betrays a flicker of fear. That small detail underscores the immense emotional labor Michiru performs just by existing as Haruka's anchor.
And this unwavering connection, combined with the small mercies shown by others like Usagi, it eventually begins the slow process of cracking Haruka's armor.
It does. The sources note these crucial, small moments. Usagi reaching out a hand in genuine compassion. Hotaru's innocence serving as a constant reminder of the possibility of pure good.
And Michiru's unwavering presence.
She never tries to change Haruka, only to hold her.
And this is the critical shift in her personal philosophy. For so long, Haruka believed that to effectively protect the world, she had to stand completely apart. Strength meant absolute sacrifice and emotional isolation.
But slowly, through these connections, she begins to wonder, what if protection didn't have to mean ice? What if strength didn't have to be defined by pain?
She learns that real guardianship isn't solely about calculated destruction.
It's also about belief. Belief in the goodness of others, belief in healing, and belief in the compassion of Sailor Moon.
The character arc shows her learning that trusting someone else to fight beside her, especially someone whose methods she initially found naive, like Usagi.
Isn't weakness, it's liberation. It relieves that singular burden she carried.
The sources conclude that Haruka begins to carry her emotional scars differently as the series progresses.
Right. Not only as proof of how much she's had to sacrifice, but as a reminder that even the fiercest wind can learn to be gentle.
The world isn't saved by one unbreakable soldier.
It is saved by those willing to open their hands and share the burden, even if they have only ever held weapons.
She achieves a form of maturity that goes beyond just accepting her fate. She matures by accepting intimacy. She finds liberation in realizing that true guardianship is sometimes about allowing yourself to be protected too. Haruka Tenno resonates so profoundly with us, the learners, because her struggle mirrors the most profound human conflict, the constant tension between personal desires and overwhelming duty.
The difficulty of balancing fierce ambition with emotional needs.
And the exhausting task of navigating personal identity in a world that's obsessed with rigid expectation.
She is the perfect mirror for those of us who feel they must always be the strong one, keeping their fears private for the sake of others. Her silent resilience is so often misunderstood, just like our own.
She's as proof that deep strength requires you to sometimes be the villain in the narrative so the real hero can succeed. She is a magnificent inspiration for authenticity without apology. Haruka taught us that being strong doesn't mandate being hard. You can be composed, still be quietly crumbling inside.
She showed us that freedom is sacred and that real love doesn't ask us to become someone else, but it enables us to finally fully become who we are.
Her devotion to Michiru is proof that revolutionary tenderness can be quiet, yet still endure against the demands of the universe.
She is the rebel who does not scream for justice, but whispers, "I will do what must be done, even if it breaks so that you may live."
And when she stands still, just for a moment, on the shore or on the racetrack, beside the woman she loves, you realize that the most powerful kind of strength is the one that finally allows itself to be held.
Because even the wind, fierce and free, longs for a place to come home to. A place where it can finally rest.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the complex soul of Sailor Uranus.
So we leave you with this final provocative thought. Haruka Tenno finally found her relief, not in winning the war, but in sharing the burden. What storm are you still carrying that needs permission? What act of vulnerability could ultimately be your greatest?
We'll see you next time.